Tonight, the U.S. is set to remove some 12,000 U.S. troops from Germany and is reviewing plans to draw down the U.S. troop force in South Korea. The moves are part of a policy of restraint and disentanglement from overseas conflicts and are much in line with the president's call to end, quote, forever wars like the ones in Iraq and Afghanistan. The isolationist ideals of American military restraint appeal to President Trump and to some Democrats as well. In a recent article in Foreign Policy, authors Jonathan Schanzer and Mark Dubowitz call the restraint of U.S. power a, quote, dangerous illusion, adding that withdrawing from foreign entanglements would make the world much less safe. Here now with us is one of those authors, Jonathan Schanzer. He's the Senior Vice President for Research at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Jonathan, thanks so much for being with us this evening. And as we begin this conversation, why do you think withdrawing U.S. forces makes the world less safe? I mean, many would say messy wars like the one in Iraq and Afghanistan are evidence against this theory.
Well, I would say that absolutely those wars were not handled properly, that the war planners did not do us a service and certainly did not help our cause in the long term. But what I would say here is that the overall idea of drawing down on American forces and withdrawing from the world does not give us any leverage when it comes to China or Russia or Iran or North Korea. If we have less of a footprint, they are going to be able to feel like they can march forward with their own plans, they can challenge us, and that we will have little to say about it. And so we have to think very carefully about that footprint that some would say, you know, we need to reduce or diminish altogether. But that does raise questions about the kind of leverage that we'll have in the future.
Absolutely. Well, what about U.S. debt and U.S. military spending? The Pentagon budget now exceeds $700 billion. Are we simply spending too much?
Well, I think we are spending probably more than we need to. But what I would probably like to start with is just looking at spending inside the building and how much it costs, for example, to work with contractors who continue to gouge the U.S. government. I don't believe that the Pentagon's mission is the problem. I think it's the way that we operate, the bureaucracy, the swamp, so to speak, in Washington is still very much alive and well.
Now, what about mission creep? That's a word that some of us are familiar with. What happens when the U.S. becomes involved in a conflict and it ends up becoming another Vietnam War or forever war? Is that a problem?
It is a problem. And you know, one of the things that I think we need to think about right now as this debate will undeniably continue, whether there is a Republican or Democrat in office, you know, there is, I would say, a bigger question about you know, what it is that we're trying to accomplish. Do we want to have our men and women building wells and schools and putting up electric lines, or is their job simply to defeat the rogue states and enemies abroad that threaten the United States? I would think the latter, but unfortunately for the last several years, we've been focused on the former.
Well, just 30 seconds left here, Jonathan, really quickly. If the U.S. does not act as an interventionist force in the world, who will?
Well, that's the big question right now. I mean, when the British Empire began to unravel, the United States was able to step into its place and preserve a liberal world order. And I mean liberal not in the political sense, but one that has Western values. The idea now is that China or perhaps Russia, these are the revisionist powers that would likely take our place. And that is what makes isolationism or restraint that much more dangerous.
Jonathan Schanzer, we certainly appreciate your insights. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.